Hey everybody, welcome to the History of D&D Weekly for August 15th, 2020. I'm your host, DM Gallibond. Alright everybody, this week on the History of D&D Weekly, we are going to continue our discussion of the combat rules for original D&D. Yes, that's right. It's a continuing discussion. Last week, to recap, we got through the order of combat, special combat maneuvers, what THACO means, and the attack roll. Today we are going to start with missile combat, and we'll see how far we can get. I went longer than I expected last week and covered less information than I thought I would, just because it's so dense and there's so much material. So I'm going to try to keep this to around 30 minutes this week, and we will see where we get to in that time. All right, let's go ahead and get on with the show here. All right, the missile combat in original D&D. So the missile combat phase comes after the movement and before the magical attacks. And then the different attack phases are missile combat, magic, and then finally melee. They call it hand-to-hand, but it's actually melee. So that's not just fighting, wrestling or punching and kicking and things like that. It's be like your swords and your spears, your axes and stuff like that that you're fighting with hand to hand would be in that hand to hand phase as well. All right. Missile combat phase. Each character has chosen to use a missile weapon, thrown or a missile or thrown weapon. Now he chooses his target rolls and then rolls damage if it's successful. And victim, if hit, applies results immediately. His attack kills or stuns the victim. That victim will not be able to act later in the round, except in the case of simultaneous, because then both sides get to go simultaneously. So you can get those situations where Bob the Barbarian swings his axe. The orc swings his axe. They both hit. They both do fatal damage. They both die. That can happen if they get a simultaneous roll on their initiative. All right, missile adjustments. Each of the factors for missile adjustments can provide a bonus or penalty when using. Dexterity. Your dexterity score will give you an adjustment anywhere from -3 to +3 on the attack roll. And there are 3 range categories. There's short, medium, and long range. Short range gives you a +1 on your attack. Medium is no adjustment, and long range is -1. Cover, there's special rules about cover. So if the target has 1/4 cover, if it's soft cover, like you're hiding behind a hedge or something like that, it's -1. If you have 1/4 cover and you're hiding behind the corner of a wall or something, if it's hard cover, then it's -2. Half cover is a -2 or -4 for soft or hard cover. 3/4 cover for soft is -3. Hard cover is -6. And full cover, if it's soft cover, you have a -4 to the attack roll. And the hard cover, you can't hit it. So then those dexterity adjustments, the range, and then finally there's magical adjustments. So if you have a magic bow, +1. All right, or magic crossbow +1. Well, then you add the +1 to your attack roll. Or if you have ammunition that it is, or if it's a thrown weapon that's magical, you add the bonuses. You know how that means. Every missile weapon thrown in a game, or missile or thrown weapon, range, okay, cover adjustments. Maybe harder to hit behind hiding behind a table or chair or tree or boulder outdoors. A shield does not provide cover. The -1 to AC bonus is the only adjustment the shield provides. Targets behind cover, DM should mention a fact to the players, will apply penalties to the attack rolls. DM does not have to tell the players precisely how severe the attack roll penalties are. And, now that's actually, they actually made it really easy for the DM to just sort of be kind of a dinkus in this edition, because there were so many things the DM was supposed to do. Oh, and the DM's not supposed to tell the character. It's like, yeah, well, how do I really know you rolled that? How do I know it really means that? And so it's kind of like, uh, I think it's better to sort of let your players be informed before they attack. So that means telling them whether the cover they have is soft cover or hard cover, and whether it's 1/4 cover or 3/4 cover, half cover or full cover. All right, so soft cover means missile attacks easily penetrate, and the value is mainly to hide, so bushes, tapestries, whatever. Hard means cover can often deflect or stop missile attacks, boulders, oaken tables, doors, and such, walls, things like that. Magic adjustments. Character under the effect of a magic spell helps his chances to hit or has a magic weapon. That goes. Missile adjustments to damage. Characters get their strength adjustment to thrown weapon damage, but not to missile weapon damage. If a weapon has a magical bonus, you also add the bonus that a damaged weapon does. Arrow does 1d6. Arrow plus 1 does 1d6 plus 1. Targets within 5 feet. Missile attacks are not normally effective within a 5-foot range. If the target was within 5 feet and the attacker is using a missile fire device, bow, crossbow, etc., the attack automatically misses unless the target cannot move. Target must be tied down, grabbed by another character, held by magic, otherwise pinned, else the missile attack will fail. Hang on just a moment. All right. And then partial targets. Sometimes the target is only exposed for part of a round, such as during a quick run between points of concealment. If so, the DM can use this rule to simulate the difficulty of hitting a target that is only briefly exposed to fire. Combat round is 10 seconds long. So notice that's a difference. 5th edition, it's 6 seconds, so there's 10 rounds in a minute. Original D&D, it's 10 seconds long, so there are 6 rounds in a minute. And then the DM should calculate, based on how he sees the situation, how long the target was exposed, and then consult the table below for the target's defensive bonus. Bonus applies both to armor class and saving throws. In fact, the attack is a spell that normally does not allow a saving throw, and a defensive bonus from partial exposure gives the target a saving throw of 20. All right, so if the target is exposed for 1 second, they have a defensive bonus of 9. For 2 seconds, defensive bonus. Okay, see, this was like super complicated. It's cover, not cover. It's hard cover, it's soft cover. End of discussion. I think that gets really way too much math going on in that one. All right, let's take a look at the magic phase. In the magic phase of combat sequence, each character has chosen to cast a spell this round, or can cast and hasn't already made a missile attack, now chooses their target. Make an attack roll to hit that target, and if the attack roll is required for a spell, target makes a saving throw if one is allowed or necessary. Target applies any damage immediately. As before, if the attack kills or stuns the victim will not be able to act later in the round. So maximum spell damage. The maximum spell damage produced by any single spell is 20 dice of the type of dice specified. So when we get to looking at spells, we will look at damage accumulation in later editions, in 5th edition specifically. There are spells that have a specific amount of damage, and then if you upcast to a higher level, a higher spell slot, then you add damage dice to it. In this edition of the game, most of the time the ratcheting up of damage is automatic, and it's not tied to what spell slot you use. It's tied to the total caster level of the caster. So I think it's 5th level when you get 3rd level spells, and 3rd level spell forever has been Fireball. So in this edition of the spell, you add an extra dice of damage every level you go up from 5th. So when you hit 6th level, you suddenly add another die. 7th level, you add another die. 8th level, you add another die. 9th level, you add another die. The cap on that, though, is 20 dice worth of damage. So that's to avoid high-level characters being able to take out really tough monsters with one spell. Okay. Maximum. Okay. Character saving throws. Player finds out what he's saving against: death ray, poison, magic wands, paralysis, turn to stone, dragon breath, rod, staff, or spell. Cross-references his character level with the attack on the saving throws table, all characters, and rolls a 1d20. If he rolls or exceeds the number shown, he is successfully saved. So, for example, now you'll see this on other places. You see like CD, that's cleric or druid. FM, fighter or mystic. MU is magic user. T is thief. D is dwarf. E is elf. H is halfling. Bad effects of any magic spells can be diminished or eliminated if the victim made a saving throw. So let's say you are a cleric and a dragon tries to breathe on you. Well, you need to roll a 16 or better on your saving throw. And some spells, magical items, high wisdom scores can improve some saving throws. So, yes, if you have a high wisdom score, that affects all your saving throws. In later editions, certain saving throws are based on different abilities, like you have a dexterity save or a wisdom save or a charisma save. Nope. In this edition, you have saving throws against different type of effects, and what helps those saving throws is a high wisdom across the board. So a high wisdom helps you against dragon's breath, and against magic wands, and against paralysis, and against death rays, and against rod, staff, for spells. Why? Because that's the way the rules are written. So that's what your wisdom does for you. Then monster saving throws. Monsters do not have separate saving throws table. They use the same table as characters. If a monster description in another publication does not have save as listing, here's a simple rule of thumb. Intelligent creatures save as fighters of equal experience level to the monster's hit dice. So a 5 hit die monster saves as a fighter level 5. So it would use this row. Would use this 4 to 6 row here. And then a creature of animal intelligence or lower saves a fighter whose experience level is half the monster's hit dice round up. Thus, a 9 hit die monster of intelligence 1 would save as a 5th level fighter. Hand-to-hand combat. Alright, hand-to-hand combat phase. I prefer the term melee combat phase because hand-to-hand combat phase is a little misleading. Just hand-to-hand combat attack roll as noted in the following tables. So strength modifies your melee attacks. Magic on the weapon. It's a +1 axe. You get a +1 on your attack roll. And fighter combat options. So smash is -5 to your attack, and you add your strength score to your damage. Lance attack and set spear versus charge is double damage. And then melee weapon adjustments to hit only. Weapon mastery. See the attack roll bonuses table under weapon mastery in Chapter 5. So when your character tries to attack a target in melee, adjust his attack and damage rolls for the following things. Strength. Bonuses to hit and damage from exceptional strength or penalties from exceptionally low strength. Magic. Either spells that boost the attack rolls or magical weapons. And maneuvers. 3 combat maneuvers can affect the attack roll and amount of damage. Smash maneuver. And then the lance attack or set spear versus charge. Then you doubles the amount and then adds any other bonuses. Optionally, adjust the attack roll if he is at a skilled or better level of weapon mastery with the weapon he's using per weapon mastery rules in Chapter 5. Okay, 2-weapon combat is optional. In many fantasy adventure novels, characters fight with 2 weapons, carrying 1 weapon in each hand. So in this situation, a character who carries a weapon in each hand gets 1 additional attack per combat round. Both attacks take place during the melee combat phase, one after the other. The attacker can decide each round which weapon he uses first and which he uses second. The second attack is at a penalty of -4 to hit, but not damage. So this is in later editions. They had a main hand and offhand, and your main hand would always get the regular attack bonus, and the offhand would always get the -4. In this edition, it's you as the character get to have a preference. So you can have, let's say, a rapier in one hand and a dagger in the other. So you can choose one round to attack with the rapier first and then the dagger. The rapier would get the normal attack roll. The dagger would get a -4. In a subsequent round, you can choose to attack with the dagger first and then the rapier. And in that case, the dagger would get the normal attack roll, and the rapier, because it's the second attack, would get the -4. So it gives you some flexibility, which is kind of nice in this 2-weapon thing. Okay. Weapon mastery penalties. There's an additional penalty. The second attack is treated as if 1 mastery level lower than normal. So if a character has expert mastery in both normal sword and short sword and uses a normal sword and a short sword, he strikes at expert level with the normal, but only at skilled level with the short sword. So a second attack does take the -4 penalty described earlier. Attack is only basic mastery. The second weapon is treated as basic mastery. Is not reduced to unskilled. If a character is unskilled, he may not use it for a second attack. So coordinating multiple attacks, weapon mastery, and 2-weapon combat. So fighter combat options and mystic character class both provide with extra attacks per round. 2-weapon combat. 1 weapon from Chapter 4, the cestus, is used in the second hand, takes no offhand penalty. With weapon mastery, some weapons allow a character a second attack in combat with no offhand penalty. 1 weapon, the tough shield, can't be used with any other weapon, but allows 2 attacks with neither attack at offhand penalty. So, multiple attacks with 2 weapons. The campaign is using both multiple weapons attack and 2-weapon combat. The addition of 2-weapon combat allows a maximum of +1 attack per round at the listed chances. For example, a 12-level fighter with 2 attacks, normal sword and a dagger. 2-weapon rolls, he gets +1 attack per round, so he gets 3 attacks instead of 2. And then that way he attack twice with his normal sword and once with his dagger. And then weapon mastery rolls -1 mastery level reduction penalty. So multiple attacks with weapon mastery. And then campaign is using both weapons attacks +1 per round. Such weapons do not strike at a penalties. Example, a 24th level fighter has 3 attacks per round. Using a bastard sword, one-handed as his main attack and a sword shield. Second weapon, he can attack 3 times at no penalty with his bastard sword and once at no penalty with a sword shield in 1 round. So all of these rules together. Uh, so yeah, then we so using all three rule sets, 2 weapon combat and weapon mastery, using both weapons, combat rules, and weapon mastery that add second attack will provide a maximum of +1 attack per round. So what this is trying to do is this is trying to say that if you combine this, you can't mix these rules, or you can't let your players try to mix these rules. So they say, well, because I'm using 2 weapons, I get an attack, and then because an extra attack, and then because I'm this level and I have the mastery, I get another attack. So that gives me 2 extra attacks per round. No, it doesn't. It just gives you the 1 extra attack per round. Those extra attacks don't stack, in other words. What you're doing is you're actually, when you add these things together, you're reducing the penalties that you take for having those multiple attacks. So that's the benefit you're getting. Okay. Unarmed combat. Now this is, say, yeah, unarmed combat is also part of melee, hand-to-hand combat. Character attacks an opponent without using a weapon. Standard rule for unarmed combat. The unarmed character inflicts 1 point of damage per hit, plus any strength bonuses. And then unarmed combat takes place in hand-to-hand phase. All the following rules are options to expand unarmed combat and can be used at DM's discretion. Give 10% experience bonus if player characters defeat monsters using unarmed combat. So, striking and wrestling. All character classes and levels may use striking and wrestling. Unarmed combat, the attacker either strikes an opponent with fist kick or tries to grab an opponent, jump on, tackle, etc. 1 for striking, including all unarmed blows, and 1 for wrestling, all other forms of unarmed combat. Mystic class characters use only the striking rules when they wish to fight someone without doing him significant harm. They already possess unarmed combat abilities that far surpass any abilities provided in the options below. Yes, the Mystics, which is the origin of the monk class in later editions, they fight unarmed, and just like the later edition monks, they get all kinds of nasty bonuses and damage and special effects and everything on their unarmed strikes. So in one character it says target in unarmed combat is called striking. Normally results in either a stun or a knockout. However, if the attacker has less than 4 hit dice, a stun is the only possible result. See the striking. So restrictions: attacking hit dice. Although any creature may attempt to strike an opponent in experience, characters do not do it very well. If the attacker has less than 4 hit dice, you cannot achieve a knockout result. So size differences. Strike cannot achieve a stun or knockout if the victim is 2 more times the size, height, length, not weight, of the attacker. Strike will still do normal damage. Halfling cannot do stun or knockout to a full-grown human, but can achieve these results against an elf or dwarf, which are not twice its height. Okay. When a character strikes a monster, DM decides whether the victim is 2 or more times the size of the attacker. You know what? You shouldn't wait until they make the attack roll. Let's see. What's the size? You should let your players know that ahead of time. So monsters with other attacks, creatures whose weapons are parts of their bodies, and natural weapons, claws, teeth, those types of things, do not normally strike. Exceptions: bears can strike as well as claw. When a monster with natural hand-to-hand weapons also strikes, it does strike damage equal to half of its normal attack. So monster immunities. Creatures with multiple heads may suffer few or no results until all of its heads suffer or stunned from knockout results. Several types of creatures are immune to some or all effects. So undead, constructs, and oozes, jellies, and molds are completely immune to strikes. A creature can be hit only by magical weapons. Striking has no effects unless the attacker is wearing a piece of magical apparel. So like magical gloves that would turn it into or magical gauntlets that would turn that into a magical attack. Or magical boots if you're going to kick them. Creatures immune to most normal weapons, but do not necessarily require magic to hit them. Also do not suffer damage from strikes, but can suffer some stun or knockout results. So lycanthropes, which are immune to normal weapons, but can be hit by silver weapons if the attacker is wearing magical apparel. Strike attacks will also do damage to these types of monsters. So, there is a procedure for striking. Just like there was a procedure for combat rounds, there's a procedure for striking. And we're going to finish up this stuff on striking, and then we're can we have time to do the wrestling? I don't think we have time to do the wrestling. We're just going to get done with the striking. Because there's a lot to get to. You see what I meant by original D&D has a ton of rules for combat and why it takes so long to get through all these things. So during hand-to-hand combat phase, player announces he intends to strike. Strike with his fist, foot, head, elbow, or knee. If he intends to use a fist, character must be empty-handed or may drop or put away an item in a striking hand. Character goes through normal initiative and attack roll. If a strike hits, character does the base damage of 0 plus any bonuses from his high strength. I think that's actually supposed to be 1 plus bonuses from high strength. Victim hit by strike must roll d20 and subtract his constitution score from the result. If the total is 1 or more, the victim is stunned for 1 round. The stunned victim must also make a saving throw versus death ray with a +4 bonus, or suffer a knockout. Duration of the knockout is simply the result of the 1d20 minus Constitution score roll in combat rounds. The victim is an NPC and his Constitution score is not known. DM rolls or select one. The VM's monster used twice its hit dice as the Constitution score, ignoring pluses. So stun effects. 1 round. Stuns cause an unarmed combat. Victim cannot make attacks until the stun wears off. In other types, the stun might go on a while, allowing a stunned character to attack ineffectually after a certain amount of time has passed. Also, while stunned, the victim moves at 1/3 normal rate for whatever speed he's attempting. Suffers a -4 penalty to all saving throws, +4 penalty to armor class, and he cannot concentrate, cast spells, or use magical items. He cannot use general skills. Any weapon mastery skills above basic is reduced to basic level. Knockout effects, simply a short sleep. Victim is unconscious and completely helpless. Striking and combat maneuvers. An attack. Strike is a normal use of the attack maneuver from combat maneuvers. Fighting withdrawal. An unarmed character can perform a fighting withdrawal normally. Retreat. Unarmed character can perform a retreat maneuver normally, but not while he's striking. Striking in 2-weapon combat. The campaign is using 2-weapon combat rules, and characters can strike with their offhand instead of using weapons in that offhand. The offhand strike will suffer the normal penalty, -4 to hit, and if you use weapon mastery, -1 level of weapon mastery, so basic level stays basic. Striking and weapon mastery. D&D game world, physical and vigorous. Therefore, every character, regardless of class, is presumed to have basic level of mastery of striking techniques. Not have to spend a weapon mastery choice to get this. It's free. Characters can train up to greater levels of mastery in striking using the normal rules for weapon mastery. Instead of spending a new level of mastery on a weapon, we'd spend it on one type of unarmed combat. Systemized training and striking techniques, usually called boxing. Look at weapon mastery in Chapter 5 for explanations of the symbols and abbreviations above. In short, they are P = H. Primary target is hand-to-hand drone weapon using monster. SM, small weapon, one hand. Shield may be used. Okay, thus and so. Optional rules for striking. The DM may choose to use some or all. So punching, only a fist strike can cause a knockout. All other strikes result in stuns at best, but for a duration of 1d20 minus the target's constitution score in rounds. Tough opponents, the knockout is not possible if the victim has more hit dice than the attacker. Using strength, the character may decide not to use all of his strength, pulling the punch so that no damage is inflicted. Character may either use his entire strength bonus or no strength bonus, but may not choose a number in between. All right, so yes, boxing, unarmed combat mastery. So striking is 1 point of damage, stun or knockout. So primary targets hand to hand. So skill level 1d3 points and stun or knockout. 1h sh. Shield being used, one-handed, 1d4 plus 1, no offhand penalty. And then, yeah, as you go higher and higher, you get more and more damage. So saving throws, character has a strength adjustment. The adjustment also applies in reverse to the victim's saving throw versus death ray to resist knockouts. Strength 17 fighter plus 2 imposes a -2 penalty on the victim's saving throw to avoid being knocked out. Okay, so that's interesting. Striking character may wear a cestus or carry a small heavy object such as a pouch full of coins. If he does, strike does normal damage, not weapon damage, but the victim must save to avoid being knocked out. He takes a -2 penalty. Regenerating victims. The victim has power regeneration, so recovering hit points every round. The duration of a knockout is reduced. Each point of regeneration ability reduces knockout duration by 1 round every round. For example, a troll regenerates 3 hit points per round. It suffers a knockout of 8 rounds. First round is knocked out, you count off 1 round of duration and subtract 3 more rounds for its regeneration. The end of 2 rounds, the troll has used up its entire 8-round knockout duration, so it comes back up on the 3rd round. Fighter combat options. Additional combat options for fighters and demi-humans can be applied to all forms of striking. A character with multiple attacks who is able to hit targets with a roll of 2 can make multiple strikes. Smash. Unarmed character with a smash maneuver may smash with his fist. It's called a haymaker. Suffers the -5 to hit, but the other smash rules are different. First, the unarmed character adds only half his strength score to the damage he does. Victim who makes a saving throw versus death ray against knockout does so at a -4 penalty, negating the standard +4 bonus given. Haymaker can affect monsters of any size. Monsters 2 or more times the size are not immune to the stun and knockout effects. Or you can parry. And -5 bonus to armor class by blocking attacks with a weapon. Or disarm. Unarmed fighter may try to disarm an armed fighter. And that is for striking. All right. We have been going for a little over 30 minutes, so we're going to go ahead and leave it there. Next week, we will come back with part 3 of combat. We will get into wrestling. And then we will see how far we can get with that. But for combat rules, we still have wrestling to get through, which is part of melee combat. And then we have aerial combat and combat effects of flying and special aerial attacks. And then we have naval combat and missile combat and close quarters combat, underwater combat, siege combat, structural damage, NPC siege specialists. And then we have the War Machine. Game rules designed to resolve large battles. So that will be a separate thing for mass combat. I doubt we're going to get through all this other stuff, starting with wrestling and going all the way to the end of combat rules next week. We'll probably have, as long as this wrestling is, we might even just have one whole episode on wrestling, and then special like aerial and naval and underwater after that. And then we will do the War Machine combat. This is a deep, deep, deep dive into combat in 1st edition. All right, everybody. That is going to do it for our discussion of melee combat and striking. If you would like to, if you like what we're doing here on this channel, please go ahead, like, subscribe, click the post notification bell. That way you'll be notified every time we put a new video up on the channel. Do you have any comments about your impressions of the combat rules in first edition versus the editions you played? It'd be interesting to see your comments down there. Also, if there are things that you have borrowed out of old editions and you use in your game, I'd just be curious to see what other DMs are doing with that. And I have been DM Gallibond. We hope you're back next week to see our next installment of the History of D&D weekly. And until then, hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week. Take care, everybody. Talk to you later. Good night.